You're listening to Leadership Recalibrated, where we dismantle outdated leadership playbooks and explore the new way to lead. I'm Lori Lalonde, founder of Her Executive Ascent, and I created this podcast because I was tired of hearing the same recycled advice about what it takes to be a good leader. You know the scripts: be more confident, lean in, develop executive presence. But what if those scripts were written for a leadership model that no longer works? What if the future of leadership looks less like commanding authority and more like strategic influence, emotional intelligence, and authentic power? Each week, we take on the questions most leadership programs avoid, the power dynamics nobody teaches, and the decisions that actually shape your career. This is where you stop following the old rules and start designing the leadership career that fits who you are now and where you're going next. Let's recalibrate. On today's episode, we have Cass Cooper. She's a writer, speaker, and leadership strategist who helps organizations navigate complexity and lead with clarity. With more than 20 years of experience across sales, organizational development, and leadership advisory work, she is known for translating messy people challenges into practical, scalable strategies. Through keynotes and workshops, Cass challenges leaders to rethink the so called soft skills as core business capabilities and build people centered systems that support accountability, resilience, and long term performance. Hi, Cass. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you,
Good.
Lori.
It's good to see you too. I am so glad you made time for me today. Looking forward to this conversation. So, Cass, you describe yourself as someone who helps leaders interpret chaos rather than eliminate it. Before we dive into what that means, tell me more about your background and the journey that led you to where you are today.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for having me. This is one of my favorite things. I often say is podcasts are kind of like church because I feel like I learned so much about myself, about who I get to speak with. When I listen to them, I just am so entrenched in the wisdom that people can gain just in a conversation that they're having one on one with someone. So I'm really glad to be a part of supporting you and your audience. And hopefully everybody gets a little something out of listening today. My name is Cass, she, her pronouns. I am the chaos whisperer. So I interpret change, organizational communication. How do we talk to people? How do we assert and think about risk? But also we often think of things that are chaotic or challenging or hard as something we need to either avoid because we don't have the skills or something to overcome. And I don't see it that way at all. Chaos is something that we live within, right? The only true constant is change, and that can be chaotic. And if we learn to, slowly and ease into and whisper to the chaos that we have around us, it does become easier over time to really deal with the things that are in front of us. So I help organizations do just that. What are your challenges? Where are your gaps? Where do you need more education, more training, more skills? How can we communicate that well to your workforce? And what is the essentially the return on investment in making those investments and changes into your people. So overall, it's kind of a cool gig. Background wise, do you want me to go into that too, or
Oh yeah, I want to know
okay?
the journey.
Yeah.
How did you come into this path that you're in today?
Yeah, so educationally, I have a master's degree in inclusive leadership and organizational development from the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, if you know, you know. And my undergrad is in women's and gender studies. And those two things put together really give me an opportunity to look at systems and not just the systems within an organization, but the greater cultural systems that we all find ourselves. At the end of the day, we all live in a body that has gender. We live in a body that has race. We live in a body that has different abilities and orientations and all of those things. And it's unrealistic to expect us to leave that at the door when we go to work. It is part of who we are. Similarly, the world influences the ways that organizations structure themselves. So I've just always been really interested and actually, to toot my own horn, really good at taking these big, complex systems of race, gender, ability, these sociological structures that inform the world in which we live, and breaking them down into ways that are tangible, understandable, but then actionable as well. It's just something that I didn't realize that I was doing until I looked around and thought, other people. I just thought everybody had access to the same information, so everybody thought the same, which I was not accurate in. So just learning how to lean into my gifting and run in that space. It really started for me. I can't even. I make the joke that some people in high school went to volleyball camp or cheer camp, and I went to leadership development camp. So yeah, it's always been a part of me. Like being a leader of leaders has always been, part of who I am. I was in sports, but I really loved, the way people think a lot more.
I
So
love that. And what does that look like in practice? So I'm curious, how walk me through it.
yeah, yeah. Personally, I think it starts in practice and knowing and finding out what you know and what are the things that you know to be true about yourself, that you know to be true about the world, what things are inherited that you just kind of hold on to because that's just what you've always thought and what someone else has taught you, and what are the things and where is the balance in between those things. It means spending some time interrogating your thoughts, behaviors, beliefs, pulling those threads that sometimes are very difficult to understand, whether that be politically, whether that be socially. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just about, as an individual, being curious about the world, being curious about other people, and having an honest introspection to your own sense of knowing and your own sense of being. So that's one bucket, like when you're just talking about your own personal ideas and ideals. I would also say organizationally, that same curiosity serves us well. So why is the system the way that it is? And so many leaders are just like, I need to get this done. I have to produce. I have to keep moving, all of these things. But why? And I have a little bit of a hospitality background, and the Marriott Corporation is great at this, and they really say about you need to ask why 5 times, right? There's this old story of, they were having a hard time turning over rooms and making sure that the rooms got serviced in a quick manner. And so they asked why. Well, why is that taking so long? Well, the rooms aren't ready. Well, why aren't they ready? Well, we don't have enough sheets available to change the beds. Okay, why don't we have enough sheets? Well, they're down in the laundry and they're not always done and they get finished, but they don't make it up to the floor. Well, why don't they make it up to the floor? Well, we only have one elevator, right? So if we fix the elevator, then we've solved like the bigger problem. And that just requires a lot of curiosity and an ability to kind of again, whisper to that chaos and say, okay, here's the little tiny thing. Here's the small voice that we can create that's going to create ripples across our organization because we were curious.
Yes. And most people stop at the first or second why.
Yeah. I think sometimes that's a time constraint. I
Yeah.
think leaders, especially now, we just don't have a lot of time on our hands. Everything is supposed to move so fast. You're encouraged to make decisions quickly. We're encouraged to not overthink things. And I think there is a balance. Listen, as a chronic overthinker, I definitely that is something that I continue to work on. However, I think when people take some time to really have some structure around the questions that they ask, it makes it easier to make those deeper decisions and be curious, but still do it in a timely manner. We don't have to sacrifice our curiosity for the sake of speed. And because when we do that, we increase risk inside of our organizations. We lose people, we lose trust, we lose market share. So it's really about doing what's best for the organization so you can take care of your people and take care of your customer and your clients.
Yeah, I agree on all those points. And it's interesting because you're right. It's the perception of time and the perception of we have to move fast. And I think technology enabled a lot of that.
Mhm.
We continue to just be running on this hamster wheel that just never ends. My firm belief is the only professions where time is of the essence are in medicine, working in an ER, if you're a firefighter putting out fires in a house, if you're police chasing down a criminal, that's where time is of the essence. In corporate, it's just a construct. Somebody just came up with some timeline and everyone is working themselves to the bone to meet it
Mhm.
and taking shortcuts or trying to do everything within a time frame that's not reasonable, so things don't come out quite well, but then people get used to that process and they're like, "Oh, this is just the way we've always done it." No one's questioning things
Yeah.
and no one's taking the time to just slow down, have a breath and say, "Okay, this isn't urgent." How do you get people to take that deep breath, take that step back and really see what the bigger picture is and how they reassess or realign?
Yeah. Well, so I would kind of push back on the only things are urgent thing that you led with. Because I think the reason why doctors can make fast decisions is because they have a healthy curiosity and they've been trained to ask questions and find the answers quickly. And I think we don't do that in corporate America. We go with the most likely scenario rather than trying to drill down a little bit, but it's because we don't have the training in being curious, right? And we're not creating an environment where that is expected of people to be curious. Often, when you're the person in the room who's asking more questions, you're the one who's penalized because everyone just wants to move on because of the dates and deadlines that, again, like you said, are quite frankly arbitrary.
Yeah.
So, now, do we have to perform certain things and all that stuff? But what would it look like if we always had a healthy form of curiosity and that we could continue to ask questions, even maybe sometimes after a decision's made, but not in a undermining way, but in a way that allows for us to come to the best solution. Or to, okay, we decided to do this time, but next time, because we were able to ask more questions, we're going to change the process a little bit and make that little micro shift and have that little tiny, whisper to this particular problem. So it doesn't have to be a drastic shift in our structure. It can really just be a small little thing because we continued to ask questions along the way, documented that process, and came up with some new ideas to do it better the next time. I think sometimes, that becomes the hard part. I think when people are the ones who are well grounded and asking questions. And so, to your question of what that looks like, I think part of it sometimes, and this is going to sound like a hot take, but it's really not. Sometimes it really is realizing that it's just not that serious. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not that serious. I mean, we were moving pixels at the end of the day. We're not saving lives. And so we can ask questions in a way that creates new structures if we just kind of have some levity to our work. Now, that's a lot easier said than done because, of course, like you have to have a job, you have to have income. Certain managers might give you like extra pressure. You have external forces in your personal life that are influencing your day to day. All of those things are still true. And I want to honor that in people's lived experience. And when you realize like it's a job, it's not your whole sense of being, then you can say like, okay, well, it's just I'm going to get this done in a reasonable amount of time, but it's just not that serious. I know. Is that a hot take? I
No.
don't know.
No, no, I agree with you. It's
Yeah.
exactly, and I always would tell people that. It's like, "Hey, we're not saving lives here. We're developing something, we're creating something that our market's gonna use, that our customers are gonna use, but they've been without it for this amount of time. They can wait until it's
Mhm.
ready, like, really ready
Mhm.
before we roll something out." And in industries where it's like financial services, that becomes more of a risk because you roll out something too fast, and if there's a problem with it, that could have real implications. So the
Yeah.
speed becomes more of a risk. And what I noticed in those high pressure situations where we have to meet some arbitrary deadline and we're trying to make trade offs of what goes in, what has to be delayed in order to, release something responsibly or like to provide something to the market responsibly, that's where the conflict comes up. And in
Mhm.
those high stress situations, you have a lot of different personalities and they all come to a head at some point when the and the pressure and the constraints are too much to bear.
Yeah. I think on every team, it's this idea that, like, you have to have someone, or maybe more than one someone, who is able to slow down so you can speed up. And I think that's the key thing. And when I feel like, okay, I've got a million emails to do, I've got all these different things, that's actually the time where you need to stop, pause, get up from your space, go drink some water, even if it's just for like 5 or 10 minutes, because we think that, at the end of the day, our brains haven't really evolved that much. Like, we just want to survive and thrive. And how can I make sure in this moment that I can really interpret the threat or the perceived threat in a reasonable way rather than letting my little lizard brain spiral and keep answering emails. Because at the end of the day, I'm not really answering the question or solving this challenge. I'm just doing a task. And so being able to remember that we are human beings and that we are animals at the end of the day. We're just elevated houseplants. We need sunshine, we need water, we need, nutrients. So let me do all those things so that I can come down. And the natural inclination for a lot of folks is I need to be always on making sure that all these tasks get done. But sometimes the best leaders are able to slow down so you can speed up, because slowing down allows that space for that curiosity. It allows space for better questions, and ultimately that leads to better solutions, and then it allows us to mitigate risk and ultimately save money.
Yeah, I agree with you on that 100%. And have you seen in practice where there are leaders who are trying to slow down
Mhm.
and then they get blowback from it?
Yeah, I have seen that in practice, and I think the key thing is this is where your social equity can also come into play really well. And I say this a lot, is the soft skills that we say are soft are actually not soft. They're the hardest skills you're going to learn. And being able to network across departments and really get people on your side and understand the ways in which that can help you, and how you need to do that when there's not a decision to be made that needs to be done. One of the things that I actually, when I go into an organization, I let the leader, whoever brought me in, introduce me to your team, but I'll go to other people on the team or maybe even outside of the department and just introduce myself. Hey, do you have 10 minutes to sit and talk with me? I want to learn more about you. Not just your role, not your function, but like you. Like, what was the last thing you watched on Netflix? And why was it Bridgerton? Like, these kinds of questions so that you can really be personable, but then it allows you to like pull out of that bank when you have a little bit of challenge or blowback. And so I have seen leaders who don't do that very well and they get a lot of friction. And that's when they tend to have a negative reputation, and it makes moving their projects forward that much harder. Not saying that they don't get results, because they do, like, that's the world we live in, but they get it slower. I think the leaders, especially the leaders that I've worked with and that I've helped train, are the ones that are better at really talking to people and meeting them as humans before they even ask anything of them.
Yeah, I love that, and it's so true, and that's unfortunately from what I've seen few and far between.
Yeah, I know. It's really well, but that's why that's why I'm here. So, I think that that's what I really help leaders do, is understand, like, not just their own humanity and their own sense of being and their own spaces in which they occupy, but how they can use those things and those tools and those strengths to influence the culture that they're working within and help them make better decisions. Again, slowing down so you can speed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I've experienced this in multiple ways where, I love building relationships and I love really connecting with people on a personal level before even getting into the work. And there have been occasions where there's a specific personality type where you can connect with them. They can be great or on a personal level. But as soon as shit hits the fan, essentially, I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
And someone tries to be the voice of reason in the room, because that would be usually me saying, okay, we need to really see where we're going to be able to deliver and what we need to delay. I was thinking about trade offs, right? And what's
Mhm.
realistic for my team? I don't want to burden them out. And this one person who I get along with really well, whenever I would say we need to come to a compromise on what stays, what gets pulled out, the switch would flip
Mhm.
and they would become a completely different person, very defensive, very crass, very, argumentative. Like, "No, everything has to go in. There's no compromise." And how do you work with that personality type and bridge that divide?
Yeah. So I think there's certain phrases that I think that are really helpful in the moment, right? One of them, because at the end of the day, everybody likes to be heard. Everyone likes to be affirmed. So yes, I agree with you. Some phrases I would use in that situation specifically is, you know what? Such and such, you're correct. We don't want to compromise, right? However, these are the things that we can do. and maybe we could come up with another solution. Or I hear you saying you want all these things. What would you suggest? Right. Well, I would say, hey, I want that too. We're on the same side. Like, absolutely. Here's the thing too. When someone is really in their feels and they want to have control, let them have the control.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not, like we said before, it's not that serious. So
Yeah.
you want to be in control? Cool. Be in control. I'm not going to fight you on that. But I am going to push back on what we can do in this product launch or what we can do in this customer challenge or issue. What would you suggest would be best? I think it would be this, right? Let's meet in the middle. Or even just asking, in this situation, what are your top priorities? What outcome would you like to see? Sometimes we get so much into the personality conflict that we don't allow for the bigger picture of this is what we're actually here to do. And I think with the people like this is where my background in sociology is really helpful because it's understanding the motivation for people, not necessarily in their workplace, but in their persona, right? Some of the questions I would ask is, well, tell me a little bit about their background. Are they an only child, for instance? Or are they the oldest of 10? Or and not in a that says so much about you, but it gives you a little purview of like how their life could have evolved to this point and why control is so important to them. Because I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and says, I want to be a control freak. I want to be a micromanager. All of that comes from some sort of, quite frankly, probably trauma. Workforce trauma, home trauma. And a lot of times we expect people to communicate really well at work when they're not good at communicating in their regular lives. And so we're asking them to do skills that they have no background in doing. And if this person is looking for ultimate control here at work, it might be because they don't feel control outside of their lives. And that's not to give them a way out. It's really just so that you, as someone who's collaborating with them, can better understand and not take it personally. So at the end of the day, it's not that serious. It's a job. It's, moving pixels. It's moving things on a spreadsheet. It's sending emails. Like, is it worth fighting and being this upset over something that you ultimately are on the same team and want the same things for?
Yeah. Agreed. Well, that's a really good way to I think even just diffuse the tension. I
Hmm.
really love that. I'm Lebanese, so I only know how to increase the tension. That's how I was raised. But, I have done a lot of therapy and I continue to do therapy, which I think has helped me in my later years. Like
Yeah.
at this stage of my life, I think back to how I was operating in the workplace, my 20s and 30s, and I don't like that person.
Oh, honey, I was a terrible I look back at some of the projects I led and the people I led, it was like, "Oh my gosh, like, where are they now? I owe them an apology." Like, that was not the best version of me, but I think it's because, well, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have anybody who told me there was any other way to be. We live in a world where authoritarianism is, like, the go-to for
Yeah.
everything, I'm gonna lead with control and scarce tactics. But we know from research that that is not the best way to motivate people, not for a long period of time. And I think younger generations are showing us that they're not staying at jobs that are toxic to their mental health. And they expect to have basic decency and respect. No matter how, now sometimes Gen Z is asking a little like, you just got here. Why are you asking for 10 million days off? But at the same time, they're not wrong, right? Why are we not asking and not taking our time off? So
Yeah.
there's got to be some place to meet in the middle when it comes to that. But I say all that to say, like, yeah, I don't think that any of us were great leaders when we first started, but luckily we were able to stick around long enough to learn and to help train the next generation of leaders and our peers. Some of the best leaders that I have learned from are my friends who also have been building their careers alongside me. And I'm like, well, how are you doing this with your teams? Or, you're having a trouble with your, chief operating officer. Let's talk through how you can manage up. Like, what does that look like? And I think, unfortunately, we didn't have that. And so now it's our turn to give that.
Yeah. Absolutely. See, I avoided leadership for so long in my career because I was in software dev for the first half of it and then went into consulting. And when you're in consulting, you essentially are like an individual leader. Like you are going in, you have your expertise. And so you have that leadership without authority. And then I started leading a community group and really got into the rhythm of what that looked like and what it meant. But for the first half of my career, it's not that I was trying to tell people what to do or I thought that there was like one way to do things. I was the opposite where I was wondering why everyone was gatekeeping information and and I was always rebelling against what the system was. So it's like you want to
Mm,
hide information, I'm going to share information. You want to bully me, I'm going to bully you back. Like it was not healthy. I think the sharing of information was. I think
yeah.
the mentoring, the coaching, all of that. I've built so many great, strong relationships throughout my career because I was like an open book that way. I was like, here's what I learned. Here's how long it took me to learn it. I want you to learn it faster because I think it's silly to just make you try to figure this out on your own. And so I was constantly trying to do things differently. So as a woman in tech, I already stood out. I was
Yeah.
already picked on or targeted or teased a lot or harassed, but I also made good friends, right? So I was already like the center of attention in a lot of teams where I was like the only one. And then bring my personality, the Lebanese fire into it of you're not going to tell me what to do and you're not going to hide information. I'm going to, upend everything that you think is how we work and I'm going to show you how we do it differently. I don't know why I
I
had that
kinda love
gumption.
that. I love that a lot.
But just
Well, and I think some of the best women leaders are the ones who are like, "Tell me I can't do it, hold my beer."
yeah.
Like, because I have that a little bit in me too of, "You don't think that this can be done?" That is actually, I think, one of my gifts and also maybe a little bit of a curse, but that is one of my gifts of like, "Oh, it's never been done before in this company. Let's figure out a way to make it happen." Right?
Yes.
Or, okay, there's a barrier or a roadblock. Believe in this so strongly. I think that this is the best route. So I'm going to figure it out and
Yeah.
watch me cruise by all these salespeople. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think so many times people are just underestimated. And that actually, for some of us, that motivates us. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and this was what drove my career too. The more I felt like I wasn't wanted in the room or people just wanted me to be quiet, the louder I would be and the more I
mm,
would dig in, right? That
hmm
caused some conflict. I remember I had a manager who said to me, "You need to take conflict resolution courses." And I'm like, "Why?" For the most part, I get along with everybody here. These 3 people out of a company of like 200, because they don't like me, they have some personal issues. That's a them problem. That's not a me problem. And he's like, "No, there's a reason they don't like you, and you need to take conflict resolution to figure that out."
See, yeah, I have questions. I'm like, is he telling everyone that? Because
No.
maybe they need to take conflict resolution classes also. Is this a gendered challenge? Like, oh, I'm a woman, and so you expect me to be a little bit softer?
Yep.
Um, that's not saying he was wrong, because I think we all could use some insights on resolving conflict. But again, so many of us are being asked to do things that we are not capable of doing in our, personal lives. And so I feel like that kind of stuff, okay, it's like, well, where can I apply it? I can apply a little bit here, a little bit over there, a little bit in front of me, a little bit behind me, like, all of that would be helpful, but also, like, I don't know, if I was your leader, I would say, "Hey, I noticed that you're having some conflicts with these specific people. Let's work through what the conflicts are and figure out if they're systemic or if they're personality driven." 'Cause sometimes it is just personality driven, because not everyone's gonna like you, you're not gonna like everybody, like, that's just whatever. But, like, is there a way that we can work around those personality conflicts? Or is this a systems breakdown and y'all are in constant tension because there's, miscommunication across departments? Like, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
And then if it still continued to be a problem, I'd be like, "Maybe you should read this book or listen to this podcast," or
Yeah.
"I found this, LinkedIn learning course. Here you go." Like,
Yeah.
maybe not, "Laura, you are the problem,"
Well,
conversation.
I was the woman, so I was the
Right.
problem. So
Right, and this is where, so many women too, get into the trap of "I'm the issue," when the reality is the systems that we work under are not designed for us, and so we by defaults are the issue because honestly, we're just quite frankly not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And like, but we live in this economy, we all got to work.
Yep. 100%. And yes, like I know it feels like women have been in the workforce a long time because it's been throughout our lives, but it's really still not, you know, something that has been in place so long term that the systems have been built for us. The systems were put in
Mhm.
place before women were like allowed to even enter the workspace or work,
Mhm.
and those structures still persist today.
Yeah,
This whole
because the
notion of
same
a
old bogeys are still in charge.
yeah. Like the 9 to 5 workday, you have to be in office does not take into account people's lives, their mobility, their caregiving responsibilities, all of those things. And instead
Mhm.
of trying to create a system that enables that fluidity so that people can easily come in when they can, go home when they can, work when they make up the time, whatever, because it's not about time based really. A lot of this work in organizations, it should be outcome based, not time based.
Yeah.
But these systems and the organizations were not built to support women in them.
Mhm.
And yet we're supposed to adapt and twist ourselves into a pretzel to fit into them. And I
Mhm.
think that's a lot of where conflict arises as well.
Yeah.
I've had CEOs in the past, like I worked at some small companies where the CEO like would directly just say, "You need to choose between work and family." And it was like, "No,
See,
family."
that
Like
and
family.
that to me, the whole premise of we're supposed to work as if we don't have outside lives or raise children, and we're supposed to raise children like we don't have to work is just wild to me. But again, that goes to the broader cultural issues and systemic issues that we have within patriarchy and misogyny and how that influences the way that we operate and the way that we speak to people. And so I mean, not to toot my own horn, but that's where I come in because if you
Yes.
don't understand those things, if you have a team full of mostly women and the biggest challenge you have is people getting to work for a 9 o'clock meeting on a Monday, change the meeting,
Yep.
right? Like, I don't know why nobody's on time. It's like, change the meeting. Like, make the structure one that fits the rest of even if it's virtual, like make it so people can actually be there. If you want a desired outcome as the leader, then you need to make it structurally sound for the people that are working with you. Because quite frankly, they'll leave. In the gig economy, everybody's got some sort of side hustle. Everybody's got some sort of trying to be an influencer. I don't know. Like they have options and have choices. So don't make it easy for them to move to other choices. Because at the end of the day, we really all want to do a good job. We all want to be given our kudos and our accolades and, live a life of comfortability. And as leaders, we have a lot of control over that for our teams, and not recognizing that does them and us a disservice. One of the things that someone told me early on in my career was as a leader, it's always your fault because either I didn't train you, I didn't empower you, or I didn't replace you. And replace doesn't always mean move out of the organization. Sometimes replace means putting you in a place where your talents and gifts are going to be better suited, right? Finding someone else to do this job and pushing this widget and finding another place where you can push or watch it. Like
Yeah.
how does that fit into it? And I think so many leaders are expecting like, no, this is the system, this is the way it's worked. This is the way, and not really realizing you have more control over the day-to-day outcomes than you realize.
Yeah. And I know we talked a lot about kind of working with people, with leaders with the different personality types. Is there a space in the work that you do where you also identify the systemic obstacles or barriers that are in place that
Yeah.
need to come down?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I do. I work through like asking lots of questions. So I do a quantitative and a qualitative analysis of what is your people's lived experience? What are they experiencing if it's an individual leader or people group? Like, what are their experiences of leadership? How are things communicated across the organization? Do they feel like they are getting information in a timely manner? Do they have the right tools? So I'll come in and I'll do a little bit of like a survey, and then I'll come in and do some one-on-one questions and some more qualitative, analysis, put together a nice little package. And here's my recommendations for solving it. You could hire me to come in and help you solve it, or you can just take the recommendations and run with it and go from there. So I do work a lot with individuals if they want to book one-on-one time. It's a 90-minute session. You come to me with a specific problem, you'll leave with 3 actionable things at the end, or I can come into your whole organization and we can try to work things out and figure out where the breakdown and where the miscommunication is. I think a lot of folks are having, um, especially with people who are quiet quitting, the minimalist careers. Have you heard this yet?
No, that's new to me.
Yeah, I just heard it like a couple weeks ago. So, minimalist career is having a career or a job where it just covers your daily, monthly expenses and your lifestyle so that you have all this free time to pursue what you're actually really passionate in. So, let's say you want to be a podcaster, right? So I'm gonna get a, regular, degular W-4, W-2 job and have that so I can have health insurance and it'll pay my electricity, my gas, my mortgage, whatever. And then, but I don't wanna do too much. I'm gonna do just what the job description allows because I don't see myself moving up because ultimately my passion is over here. So all my bills are paid, but I got my little side project, and so there's a lot of people who are just want a minimalist career. So as a leader, that can impact the outcome that you have for your organization and for your team. So if you're noticing people pulling back, it's not a, well, you need to do more. No, let's be curious. Let's ask why instead of just assuming nobody wants to work. I think people just get that we're not taking into account people's actual lived experiences and the culture that we're living in if we just assume people don't want to work. I'm raising my kid to be, well, she started her life in a Montessori, and part of Montessori is understanding that people at the end of the day do want to do good work, and that can motivate people to do more. But if you're not getting more out of your people, it's not because they're lazy. I could go on a tangent about how lazy is a social construct, but we don't have enough time for that. But yeah, like it's really more about what are the structures in their life that are giving them pause that they don't want to invest in this. What in your organization is making it harder for them to invest in your organization?
Yeah. And I see that disconnect and that disengagement. I've seen that in recent
Mhm.
years when I was in corporate and I left because I just decided the one day I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore
Yeah.
because it's so untenable. Though with everything that we have been through, the pandemic was something that just upended everything and really changed a lot of people's perspectives. I mean, when you think about, what we've been through, people then have shifted their priorities to say, I need to live for me
Yeah.
because there may not be an opportunity tomorrow. And there's so much instability in the world even today that people need to feel like they're contributing to something that's impactful and they need to feel like what they're doing counts, but they also want to live their life. Like they want to be able to, just like you said, pay their bills, but then enjoy life. And work in recent years feels like it's been on hyperdrive.
Mhm.
And it because it's that misconception of, well, you're working from home, you're working in front of a computer, you could do it anywhere, and even smartphones obviously have enabled the always on mentality, and it's impacting people's health. And when I left an organization, there was a point where I had met with HR for the exit interview. Even though I know it doesn't go anywhere, I still like to at least give some feedback. And the feedback I had was the
See, but
company.
right there, the fact that you said, even though I know it doesn't go anywhere, that
Yeah,
makes me sad.
yeah,
Like, people like that, I mean, what's the point of the exit interview if you're not gonna do anything with the data?
yeah.
Okay, but keep going.
Oh, yeah, and I was told directly, "Oh, yeah, we just collect this for information." Like, literally, I was told directly, like, "There's nothing we're gonna do about this." But it was one of the things I mentioned was, how can this company tout that they are a great place to work, that, all of these wonderful things about this company, when in the organization I'm in, just alone, look around, everybody's sick.
Mm,
Everybody's health is suffering in some way, and it's not trivial. It's in like deep. It's deep to the point where
mhm.
enough people were taking short-term disability leave because they just had no choice. And the HR rep said to me, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, "How could you not know what I'm talking about?" I know HR is totally involved in every short-term disability case, right? You have your HR business partner with your caseworker, with your manager, with the skip level, like, everybody knows. And she pretended like it was making this up. I'm like, "I see with my eyes, I hear with my ears,
Mhm.
I know the people that have left on short-term disability, and people that are staying are sick too, but they're just working themselves to the point where they break because they wait till they break before they go on short-term disability." I was like, "This is not sustainable."
So, and I think that's the issue becomes not it goes back to the collecting the data and not asking the right questions and not being
Yeah,
curious about like why is this happening and making it an individual personal flaw rather than a systemic failure.
yeah,
The reality is that our systems are failing people. There are more people sick, there's more people with autoimmune disorders, and that is not because just because we drink coffee every day and the air pollution because again, we have not our brains have not evolved that far. We want to survive and thrive. Is this a threat? Am I a threat to it? Can I eat it? Will it eat me? Can I mate with it? Like what these are the basic core premise of like what our brains do. And sitting in front of a computer is not what we are meant to be doing all the time. Is it the way that our world is? Yes. Does it have to be? No. You know? One of the best, like, teammates I had, she would run a meeting, and every other week she would say, "I don't care where you are," because we all work remote. She's like, "I don't care where you are, but I want you to get up and I want you to go outside for this meeting. Take your laptop and go sit on your porch or sit by a window, right? I want you to be outside of your normal environment. Like, maybe you just take the call on your phone and go for a walk." And that was one of the best things that I think she could do as a peer because she's like, everybody needs to get up from their desk and we can have these conversations. This is just a little quick touch base. But
yeah,
I know that fit for 15 minutes, everybody on this team is going to be outside. And I think we can have both. We don't have to do one or the other. That's what
yeah.
I would want to leave people with.
And that
Yeah.
leads me to, the last question.
Sure.
If you could retire one leadership rule from the corporate playbook, what would it be and what would you replace it with?
Hot take. I would retire meetings.
Hell yes. They are
We're
so
always it's like
ineffective.
meetings with back to back to back to back to back to back to back. When a decision needs to be made, we can make a decision. Empower people to make the decisions, right? Be available to answer questions. A lot of times your leader is not available to answer questions. Why? Because they're in a meeting.
Yeah,
So I hate meetings. I hate them so much. Like,
yeah.
yeah. I think they're necessary. You don't have to have a meeting just to have a meeting, right?
Oh, they're overused.
And I would replace it with actual communication. I would
I love
replace it
that.
with actual, like, pick up the phone, call somebody, and ask a question. Empower people to make decisions and choices, not have everything be by committee, because when you have those big meetings, nothing gets decided. At the end of the day, there's one person who's gonna decide. We coulda just emailed that guy and just had that girl pick, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would retire meetings. Also, hot take too, I don't think you should have meetings. If you're gonna have to have meetings, they should be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They should not be on Monday, and they should not be on Friday.
Yes. Yes, that should be a corporate rule. No meeting Mondays or Fridays. I tried to institute no meeting Fridays once. New director that came in and he was like, "This is stupid. Take that out of the calendar." I put the calendar block in on everyone's Friday to make it so that it was blocked out, it was busy. No meetings, that's your day. Heads down work, focus work, catching
Yeah.
up on training. And he told me that was the stupidest thing I've ever done and to take it out of everyone's calendars. And I was like,
See, that's Lori, that's a
"What?"
control thing.
It's
Like,
so
people just
controlling.
want they get their little corner of control, and they just wanna be in control.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation, but we are at end of time today. So, Cass, for those listening, where can people find you?
Easy. I am casscooper.com. That's where you can find me. I live on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my jam. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Cass R. Cooper. And if you really wanted hot takes on leadership, you can find my TikTok. It's just underscore Cass 2.0. Yeah, that's where I get saucy. Professionally,
Yes.
find me on
Love it.
LinkedIn.
Everybody needs to work with you. These companies need you, and we
Thank
need a
you.
change. So thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today. I appreciate you, Cass.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Lori, and I'm totally supporting everything you do. I can't wait to see what happens next.
The leadership advice that got many women this far will not necessarily get them where they want to go next. This phase of your career is not about working harder. It's about working strategically by deciding which rules still apply and which ones you are finally ready to outgrow. If this conversation resonated, stay with us, subscribe to the podcast, and join me here every Sunday for new episodes. And if it gave you language for something you've been carrying quietly, share it with another woman in your network who needs to hear it too. Until next time, lead with intention, question everything, and change the rules for the better. I'm Lori Lalonde, and this is Leadership Recalibrated.